The glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the marble floor. The billionaire CEO's face went pale. Across from him, a trembling waitress whispered, "Sir, that's my dad's signature." In that instant, every eye in the grand dining hall turned toward her, and the secret that was about to change everything. The glass shattered, scattering fragments across the polished floor. The sound echoed through the silent dining hall as the billionaire CEO froze in shock. His gaze locked on the small waitress who had just spoken, her voice quivering yet unshakable. "Sir, that's my dad's signature." The air thickened. Guests leaned back in their chairs, unsure whether to breathe. She stood there in her worn uniform, a tray still balanced against her hip, the weight of years of hardship etched into the lines of her face. And yet, in her trembling hands, there was a strength no one expected. Her name was Lily. She had grown up watching her father sketch designs late into the night, ink stains across his fingers, his signature flowing across blueprints like a mark of hope. He had taught her that honor was not written in wealth, but in the courage to stand tall when the world tried to push you down. Now, years later, Lily worked double shifts in this restaurant, saving every dollar to pay off her father's debts after his sudden passing. She carried the smell of coffee and bread home each night, her feet blistered, her spirit weary, but her heart unbroken. Across from her sat Jonathan Steele, a man of towering wealth and pride. The room always bent around him, his voice commanded, his presence silenced. He was known as a man who built empires, yet whispered rumors said his empire was built on foundations that weren't his to claim. And now, before him, a waitress held his glass and his past. Backstory of her father. Lily's father had been an inventor, a man who sacrificed everything for his daughter. He was a veteran too, a man who had once served his country with quiet dignity. He carried scars that ran deeper than skin, memories of comrades who never returned, promises he could never forget. When he came home, he poured his heart into designs, creating something he believed could change lives. But the world was cruel. Investors turned their backs. And then, suddenly, one of his sketches appeared in the hands of a rising businessman, Jonathan Steele. Her father had said nothing. He never blamed. He only smiled at Lily and told her, "Dignity isn't lost when they take from you. It's only lost when you stop believing in what's right." And so here she was, years later, standing in the glow of chandeliers, facing the man who had unknowingly stolen her father's legacy. Jonathan Steele held the blueprint in his hand, passed casually by an assistant for signing. His name was printed bold across the page, but the signature at the bottom, faint and nearly forgotten, belonged to her father. Lily's hand shook as she pointed. "That's my dad's signature." The room stilled. The weight of her words pressed down on every bystander. Yet no one spoke. The rich guests looked away, unwilling to challenge power. The waiters froze, afraid of losing their jobs. Silence itself became the weapon of injustice. Jonathan's jaw tightened. He could dismiss her, order her out, crush her like dust beneath the wheel of his empire. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For in her eyes, he saw something that shook him more than the claim itself. He saw truth. The truth burned. It reminded him of how he had once been, the young man clawing his way through poverty, desperate to rise. Had he, in that climb, buried the very man who created the ladder? And then something unexpected happened. An older gentleman, seated quietly in the corner, rose to his feet. His cane tapped against the marble as he stepped forward. He was a retired officer, a friend of Lily's father, his voice heavy with respect. "I know that signature," he said firmly. "I served with the man who wrote it. He gave his life to this country, and his work was his gift to the world. That paper belongs to his legacy, not to your empire." The crowd stirred. Others stood, one by one, their silence breaking into murmurs of support. Jonathan Steele's empire suddenly felt smaller, fragile against the rising tide of quiet honor. Lily lowered her eyes but whispered words that cut sharper than any blade. Silent dignity is louder than stolen power. My father's sacrifice is written in ink you cannot erase. Honor doesn't fade. It waits to be recognized. Each line carried weight, etched into the hearts of everyone present. Climax Jonathan's hand trembled as he looked again at the paper. His glass slipped, crashing to the floor. For once in his life, wealth gave him no shield, no armor. He was a man stripped bare by the truth of a waitress's courage. He stood slowly, clearing his throat, but the words that followed were not commands. They were confessions. He admitted the origins of his success, the debt he owed to a man long gone. His empire was built in part on borrowed genius, and now he had a choice: silence or redemption. Before the eyes of the silent crowd, Jonathan Steele bowed his head. The billionaire CEO, a man feared by boardrooms and markets alike, whispered, "Your father deserves this honor, and so do you." The blueprint was returned to Lily, framed not as a relic but as a recognition. Steele pledged funds to create a foundation in her father's name, honoring veterans who, like him, had given so much and been forgotten by the world. The crowd erupted not in applause, but in silence, standing in quiet respect, heads bowed, the kind of honor her father would have understood. In that moment, Lily realized something her father had always known. Power fades, wealth crumbles, but dignity lasts forever. This story reminds us all that respect must never be bought, and silent strength often carries the greatest weight. Wherever you're watching from, share your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in Lily's place? And if stories of silent heroes move your heart, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more. Because sometimes the quietest voices hold the loudest truths.